How's it going, everybody? We're going to be taking it a little bit of a throwback. This is BB-17 Sharkira, and this is a figure that came out, I believe, 5 or 6 years ago, somewhere in that time frame. This is one that's been a long time coming. I've had this figure for a few years, and I think I put this one into a YouTube short, but I haven't really done anything with it since then. Other than having included this in my year-end 10 review video of top 10 all-time favorite box modes from my Beastbox collection, and this one in particular did actually get an honorable mention, but it's definitely a noteworthy cube mode, and that's something we'll be talking about here in just a little bit. So a little bit more of a background on this particular Beastbox as far as my collection goes. This is actually one of the first 5 Beastboxes that I had bought when I started getting into this line. And out of those first 5, this is the one that definitely impressed upon me that they could extrude some really impressive shapes out of a 2-inch cube. Yeah, I mean, it's an elongated beast, obviously, it's a shark, and we'll be taking a look at that shape when I do a transformation demo here in just a little bit. So this was definitely a great gateway into the Beastbox series for me, and just left a huge impression on me about what these guys are capable of producing as far as transforming figures that just, you know, on the surface just turn into cubes, but within that, their engineering is so damn impressive that they can do a lot within that framework. As far as this review goes, I'm going to keep it kind of short and sweet. I'm going to touch on some of the details for this figure's box mode. Then we're going to take a look at the package. I've got kind of an old surprise for me in there that I want to take a look at here in just a second. I'm going to do a transformation demo because obviously we do need to talk about the figure mode. And of course, we'll talk about some figure details. Then I'm going to give this figure a box grade, and I'll wrap this up with some final thoughts. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. First things first, of course, it is a really interesting box mode. I think it's really fantastic, just the overall look and styling of this figure. I really dig how, you know, you do have these really defined edges or whatever. This is an earlier Beastbox where they really went into beveled edges and made things really kind of robotic looking. In this case, it's very angular, has these pointy fins, almost sharp edges, but not quite. And just some really nice styling. A little bit of irreverent humor, you know, that's on brand for 5.2 Toys. They love their inside jokes and that kind of thing. And beautiful styling all the way around. I mean, it is a beautiful looking box mode. And in case you don't know, this is a retool of the alligator. And I believe the original alligator, if I'm remembering right, is Teardrop. I don't actually have that one. I do have a limited release, a translucent purple one called Smoke. And as far as Smoke goes, I actually did an unboxing and review of that one. That was the very first video I uploaded to YouTube. So a little bit of history here for sure. So we'll set that aside for a second. And we'll talk about package details here. Obviously, this is a much older figure, so you got some older style packaging here. You got the aquatic animal faction symbol here, obviously BB-17 Sharkira. Another inside joke there. They love referencing pop culture figures and musicians and that kind of thing, and you can kind of figure out where Sharkira is coming from, I'm sure. Old school 5.2 Toys logo. Loving that. Beautiful throwback there. Got some details about the Beast box mode. Yep, and some more details on the back about this shark. Some nice looking artwork here. And interestingly enough, the mechanical design is by someone I'm not familiar with. I haven't really seen this on other Beastboxes that I can recall. This is by Ji Xuan. That is my poor American interpretation of what that's supposed to say, but I'm going to say that's probably way off. But yeah, something else that we have in here that I never really touched on after I picked this figure up is it's got some little weapons or something rather in here, so it does actually have accessories. I want to take a look at that real quick. Oftentimes with these figures, the draw for me is really just the figure itself. I don't mess around too much with the little accessories and whatnot, and these things might get left in the package and completely forgotten about, so that is interesting. There are 2 of these. Now, earlier Beastboxes, what they had for quote-unquote bonus items was like a little card with some plastic add-ons, and they were called, I think, parasitic weapons or something like that, and this is pretty similar to that style. I don't know if that's specifically what this is supposed to be, but basically with Sharkira, there were some additional bonus items that you could buy that were specific to this figure. Earlier on, I never really bought into that. But anyways, yeah, set that aside for a second here. So within this box, we do have some extra items, and I have no recollection of what this character card says, so I want to take a look at that real quick. So what do we say about Sharkira? We got, for stats, we got low defense, medium strength, high courage and speed, kind of low intelligence. So It's fast and courageous and a little bit dumb. When speaking of Sharkira, all the dwellers of the sea will frown with frustration, as this gigantic machine beast is infamous for its indiscipline and recklessness. Resupply depots near settlement are often raided by it with severe consequences. However, its followers truly believe that their idol is conjuring up a storm, and this is merely the prelude of a grand event. I guess that's the nature of Sharkira. It wreaks havoc undersea and it's causing chaos. The victims of its attacks believe that there's a bigger picture there, so so that's Sharkira. It's an agent of chaos. You know, that's something interesting too. I guess do a little bit of a throwback on the bios of these older figures. There again, when I started getting into this collection, I had zero interest in the character cards. Really, it was just about get the beast out of the box, figure out how to transform it, play around with it, and then move on. Kind of interesting to take another look at that after a few years. But that's not what we're here for. We want to take a look at Sharkira's transformation. First thing I'll say straight off the bat is, as far as this figure goes, the way it's built is it's essentially segmented into 3 main sections. And the trick about this particular figure is that you have to get everything to move around this ball socket. Now, this thing is designed to be able to pop loose. And if you don't transform it correctly, you're most likely going to wind up getting this to pop out. So there is a way to transform it without doing that. I'm going to do this from memory and see if I can get that right and show you what that looks like. So first things first, you want to pop these fins out, kind of rotate them up and out of the way. These fins are going to come up and around because they're connected to another section on the back here. And I believe this is the point where we just start unfolding things. So this back section is kind of tabbed together. So we want to unhinge that, hook that up and out of the way there. So I'll go ahead and get that fin out of the way there. Yeah, the trick is you kind of want to get these pulled out a little bit. It probably is going to help me to get these forward-facing fins a little bit up and out of the way. So basically, we want to push these out slightly, something like that, so that they can go up and over this section. Yeah, there we go. Okay, now that we have that separated out, then what we're going to do is just hinge this whole piece, and you kind of have to do it in a particular motion. It's kind of hard to explain here, but basically, you want to be rotating this piece back as you're pulling this piece down and back like that, so that way you don't get it hung up on the ball socket there. So that's basically the 3 main sections. I think what I want to do is pull these fins out to the side, then rotate them up and back like that for now. Okay, so the main trick for the back section is essentially, as you're either transforming it into box mode or into beast mode, you essentially want to have this ball socket connection at a 45-degree angle, and then twist this whole piece sideways. So let's see if I can get that right there. Can rotate that fin back on both sides. We're going to pull those pieces, yeah, there we go, out to the sides there. And then there's this internal hinge piece that needs to open up on the top and bottom. So basically, yeah, we're going to pull those pieces out like so. Now this top piece hinge will need to be opened up so it can extend out. Then you're going to do the same on the bottom one. Now I'm proceeding cautiously because I don't remember exactly how these pieces come together. But essentially, so far, I've got everything connected to that ball socket here, so haven't detached it yet. Okay, there we go. So these pieces are basically going to collapse together like so, but then you have tab pieces right here and here on the back of the fin that are going to connect together. So that'll be your connection point there. And then also on the midsection here, you got a tab and post connection, so we'll just collapse those together, and they come together nicely. And while you're at it, we can go ahead and push these pieces together. So you got that connection right there. Then you can raise these or do whatever you want with them, but they're also segmented, so you can also form this sort of triangular, almost like a claw shape, which is pretty cool. Very cool design for this figure. And yes, these top pieces do snap together. Then what you want to do is bring these pieces a little bit forward, about like that. Then you're going to rotate the figure about like so. Then you can bring that hinge up. And once you got it here, then you can collapse those final 2 segmented pieces together. They come together just like that. Then you want to make sure you pull this fin up, pull these fins out to the sides. They're on some pretty nice sturdy hinges too. It's a pretty well built figure, honestly. So you got about that shape right there. Then we can finish up with the head and neck piece. So we're going to bring that up. This section isn't quite as difficult. So basically we're going to fold these pieces out to the sides. And the interesting thing is the mouth is on this big hinge part, and basically you're just going to open it up and then recollapse it as you pull it forward. See where that's hinging at there? Same for the lower jaw, like so. then you're just basically bringing them together while you collapse the neck pieces back. They're basically just swapping places, if that makes sense. So you bring that forward about like that. That gives us enough room to collapse the neck in. Then you just push those pieces together. And you got that. Bring the head in together. And you got, yeah, about that look. You can pull these fins out. And there's your Sharkira. Super nice figure. That's something else to be said for this particular figure. I love the styling on it. I mean, you got all these angular pointy fins and whatever. It just looks like an extremely dangerous sea creature. And you got a little bit of expressiveness in the mouth there. You got a little bit of mobility in there, so you can play around with how you want the head position, whatever. So I think for mine, I usually just have it in the default position. But it has some nice mobility too. I mean, it has kind of an early version of a twisting spine. Some other later figures have done that in a more sophisticated fashion. Commando in particular is like a super sophisticated version of this type of motion. And again, because these are on ball sockets, you've got some implied mobility between the front and the back there. So you got some sections that can definitely move. And the fins and whatever can all twist around, whatever they're totally articulated. And of course, with the back fins, there again, you don't have to have them in that triangular shape. You can actually push these down a little more, and you could have them folded up. So if you just wanted to have that look, you could do that too. So pretty cool piece all the way around. Yeah, basic base layer red plastic. It does have some really nice kind of gunmetal gray parts. And if you're looking at it real close, it's almost a little bit of a flake paint effect, which is a really nice subtle touch. Some yellow paint on the shark fin tips on the back here, and unfortunately it looks like mine has worn just a little bit. And you got some nice silver paint applications. Of course, the aquatic faction symbol and that irreverent bite me. So Sharkira's got a little bit of an attitude. And just real quick, because these are two things that I left sitting in the box for about 4 or 5 years. These little 3mm ports here will attach to the shark fins, or just wherever you've got a port on here. You could put them on the top side or whatever. So yeah, you got some little weapons there too if you need that. Pretty cool. And that is something else that's a little peculiar about this figure. I'll just point that out real quick. Actually, yeah. And there again, like I was saying, you got holes all over the place, so you could put these on the bottom of the fins if you wanted. So you could have that look if you want. So another nice thing is you've got this 3mm port directly in the bottom. Given this type of creature, obviously you kind of need to have a stand to be able to display it properly, because you don't want to just leave it sitting on top of a table or something like that. That's not a good look for this particular type of creature. You know, even with a stand required, it does actually display pretty well, so pretty cool. And something else I'll point out here, a little bit of an odd touch, but they added this to this figure, is it actually has a secret compartment. So you could say that you have weapon storage, although I think you've only got room for one in here. Apparently not. With the weapons that it includes, it does have a secret compartment, but unless I'm doing something wrong, I don't think there's enough room for it to be able to stash its weapons in there. It's kind of a cool little touch, though. Now it's time to give this pointy fin Sharknado a box grade. This is my rating system of 6 categories with up to 5 points each for a total score of anything between 0 to 30 points. There's a little bit of irreverent humor with this figure. It's got great sculpting, it's a unique piece, and it's a menacing looking robot shark. 4 out of 5. As far as features, there's not a whole lot in comparison to modern Beastboxes. It doesn't really have anything in the way of gimmicks, but for its time it was definitely a level up figure mold from other prior releases. Plus it did come with a pair of weapon attachments that I completely forgot about, which is pretty cool. 3 out of 5. Transformation is fun. It's not hard to do. It can be a bit challenging given the way the sections need to be twisted to work around those open ball sockets. And it does form a very solid box mode. 4 out of 5. Articulation is very good, again, especially for its time and up against other contemporary figure molds. There are some newer figure designs like Commando with better spine and twisting mobility, but this one still has nice articulation between its spine and its fins. What's glaringly missing to me is you can't twist its head and its mouth can't close. 3 out of 5. Sharkira is pretty nicely built. Those open ball sockets are a bit of an odd design choice, but actually a smart move to allow sections to break loose if you transform it the wrong way. Not quite as nice plastic as more modern figures, but even after a couple of dozen transformations over a few years, all of its joints still feel pretty solid. 4 out of 5. This mold was again one of my very first, and in spite of having no accessories, was a lot of fun for me to transform from one mode to the other, and playing around with it in its shark mode. The biggest downside I can think of for this particular mold is, by its nature, you're pretty much required to put it on a figure stand just to display it. 4 out of 5. And that brings the box grade total to 22 out of 30. So there's a quick look at BB-17 Sharkira. Like I said, this is one of my very first Beastboxes when I discovered this series, and along with a few others that really kicked the door open for me. Fast forward a few years and several dozen figures later in my collection, and it holds up. This is still one of the very best in the line, in my opinion. At any rate, I still have a lot of other videos in the works, although time really isn't on my side. I've got a Beastbox Megabox crossover that I'm trying to get done, and in the meantime I'm probably going to be putting out some more shorts and maybe Star Wars Black Series reviews, since those are a lot easier to produce. As always, thanks for watching. If you'll take a few seconds to help out my channel with a like or a share, or better yet, leave me a comment. I haven't heard from anyone in quite a while on any of my videos, and I want to make sure you're all still alive out there. Hope you're all having a great week, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.